Pardon, pardon the glare. I can't really quite get that light right. The the Fish House studio is still a work in progress. So this would be difficult if I had a guest because it's only just so wide. And you're supposed to have it in vertical mode, which seems silly. I like it better horizontal. What is up, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome back. Monday Night Fishing Live. Coming to you from the Fish House. Fish House Studios. It's a work in progress. What is going on, everybody? Jump in when you're here. Merlin, my friend, what's up? Maybe I'll use that as a hold on 1 second. All right. What's going on, everybody? My name is Matt. I'm the Awakening Angler, and welcome to Monday Night Fishing Live. Right on. I look forward to being here every Monday night. Yeah, I like it better horizontal, Billy. I'll be honest with you. Trying to get settled in here in the new studio. You might hear a little bit of car noise. Bill Morey, Merlin, Thad Lance, Bob Bender, Eric Wisniewski, Bill Gilbert, Keith Horens, Tammy Hoover, Ray Kabaki. All right, so I don't have anything planned for this evening. I just thought we'd talk a little bit. My wife Courtney brought up a good point to me earlier today, and that was, well, let me back up a little bit. Anybody know the bar called The Nest? I believe he told me it was down in, is it Pompey? Nedro? I think I remember it being south of the city. I met the owner today at Circle K in Brewerton. His name was Jerry. I forget his last name. And you know, it's so humbling, and it really takes you back. I'm pumping gas, getting gas for the truck, and I look up, and this man's coming around the back of the truck, and he smiles at me, and I smile back, and he goes, "I watch your show all the time," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you, right on," and we had a wonderful conversation. Must have talked for 20 minutes. Standing there at the gas pump, and you never know who you're going to meet. And on my side of things, you never really know who's watching. Listen, the world's a small place, believe it or not. And, there's always, hey, we know somebody in common. We have a common interest, and you mind that common interest. We're all here tonight because of a common interest. We all love to fish. And I thought tonight I would talk a little more about that. The gentleman I met today said, Matt, I've watched you. I went down to Lakeside Outfitters and I bought a new rod because I've always been a drifter. Drifting worm harnesses or drifting bait in some way. And he goes, but I watch your videos and this whole jigging thing is intriguing. And as I was telling my wife that story tonight, she said, you you really need to do more teaching videos, and it ebbs and flows with creativity and my creativity, I guess. And I don't script much of anything. I do what I do and say what comes to me in the moment, and I trust that my first instinct will be correct in those situations. And and but what Jerry said to me today was, he goes, I've watched your show for a long time. I learned a lot from it. He goes, and I'm intrigued by this jig, you know, and I want to know more. And I've done videos on it, and I don't ever want to be redundant, but jigging's a lot of fun. It's very interactive. It's very hands-on, obviously, and it's very personal. You can make it, you can do it, you can it's almost endless how you can do it, what you can do it with. Damn near anything could be bounced off the bottom and called a jig. It doesn't just when I say I'm jigging, take out the what is being jigged, take that out of it for all intents and purposes right now. And we'll talk in real time. We'll talk about the last couple days. The last couple days I've had a good bite on the west end, not stellar, not bailing them every cast. I've had a couple 2 or 3 cast stretches where I've caught a fish every cast. Not all big ones, but I listen, catching fish is catching fish. We can dissect it all we want, and everybody wants, just one right after another of the big ones, but that doesn't really happen very often. But you live and learn as you move through things, and what I've learned the last 3 days, maybe even 4 days, is that these fish are pinned pretty tight to the bottom. I haven't been watching the barometric pressure, but my guess it's been low and it's been pushing those fish down, and they're on the bottom. Their bellies are on the bottom. 2 of the fish we caught today had leeches under their chin, little baby leeches. To me, that means they've spent an extended amount of time down in that mud, down in the bottom, because that pressure, that low pressure, has been pushing on them now for days with that east wind. And they were still biting, but I think they were pretty tight-lipped. We had a lot of short bites the last 3 days, but today especially, my partner Paul and I, multiple fish on multiple baits were being short struck enough to get a head shake or two, or even a little bit of a fight, and then off. Jump off, come off at the net, come off at the boat, come off in the net. Um, so as an angler, we start to put those pieces together. And what does that tell me? That tells me they're not coming and really grabbing it wholeheartedly, whether that's a big, whether that wholeheartedly is because of a feeding instinct, or whether it's because of um instinct, period. But when they get real negative like that, my first instinct, you can go either way and you can do both. I only ever tell people what I do and what my thinking and thought process is. That doesn't mean it's correct. That doesn't mean it's universal. None of that. And I don't ever claim that to be the case. I don't ever want to be misstrued. I only talk about what works for me. Um, and if it works and when it works. And the last couple days it's been working. But again, I haven't crushed them, but the rod has stayed bent, you know, most of the time in the last 2 days. And I've used a number of baits. I take their temperature with a blade bait and see how readily they'll eat it, and if they'll eat it good. I mean good meaning wholeheartedly. They're not messing around. They're coming in and grabbing it. Um, and bottom contact has been preeminent focus in my mind with no matter what I'm doing. So we went through the jigging process with the blades today. Um, I switched over from a blade to a shiver minnow. So this, I'm not 100% sure. So this is the big shiver minnow. That's a number 3. The one I typically use is a number 1. It's about yay big. About 3/4 of it, obviously smaller. This is just one I had in the shop out here, and I was going to show everybody. Although this is a great pattern. This is that golf ball dimpled gold plated. Man, that's killer. That's a big one though. I wish they made it in a smaller size. Um, but two, all you have to do is look at how this bait naturally hangs. If I had a piece of line right here, this bait would be hanging just like this. And that nose, that teardrop nose is pointed down. All right. So I think it's always hunting like this to begin with. But then when you pop that rod tip, that really jumps. There's no hook out here. It's not back in the middle. It's nose forward, weight forward, and it really jumps it. And that being said, what I have done these last couple days is I'm just boom, and I'm making this thing what my belief is it's jumping 5 or 6 inches, could be going off to one side or another, could be back and forth, but I'm just flicking the tip like this. I'm watching that line, and as soon as it bellies, boom, it's hit the bottom. And then I flick it like that. And I'm just flicking the tip with my wrist. Keeping a tight line. I say that, keeping a tight line as it's falling. I watch it hit the bottom and it goes boom. And that's when I snap it once it's got the belly in it. It's just like a jerk bait. I like to snap that. I don't want to pull it. Sometimes I pull it, but in this instance, I'm not pulling it through the water. I'm popping it like this. Boing. So it comes off and goes like that. And I did that a step slower as well. So that's a finesse presentation with that kind of a bait. You can do it with a jig and Rapala. You can do it with uh, an Acme hyper rattle. You can do it with any of that style jigging minnow bait. I just happen to like, and I've had a lot of success with the shiver minnows. I just like the way that it jumps. That's me. I've caught a lot of fish on Rapala, jigging wraps as well. So I'm just telling you again what I like, and I like that style. And it seems to be fast, and so it'll be boom, 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 boom. Sometimes stop, sometimes give it a double tap, and then keep it going, bump, 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 bump. And then I've slowed it down even further than that and fished a bucktail with a 2 3/4 inch um, impulse rigging leech is what they call it. It's rubber, scented. I put scent into the hair of the bucktail jig. It's half ounce. Could go down 3/8. Could even go down to a quarter. Um, that would really slow that fall rate down, especially with a piece of plastic on it. This one right now is probably fairly quick, even with the plastic on it at half an ounce. Um, but it lays down flat on its side, and I'm crawling it, I'm dragging it, or I'm just hopping it. And I'm not popping the tip on this one with the bucktail. I'm just boom, boom. And I'm imagining that it's going like this in an arc, as opposed to boing down. Um, and that real finesse slow down. Now I just happened to get my brand new article of In Fisherman tonight in the mail. And one of the articles that I've already read, start to finish, is the Ned Rig article. And I threw a Ned Rig the other day, and I gave it 5 casts maybe, and I didn't get bit. And I don't have a ton of experience with it. And I read the In Fisherman article tonight, and there's 6 of the guy that the Ned Rig is named after, Ned, whatever his last name was, starts with a K. Um, he originally was using a mushroom head jig head with a half of a Yamamoto um, Cinco. That was the original Ned Rig. And the article went on to say that it can be fished a number of ways, even straight retrieved. And you think of that, it's just it looks like you stuck a jig head on your finger, basically. And some of them just straight retrieve it. Sometimes they snap them and let them swirl down like this to the bottom. Sometimes they drag them and just skitter them along the bottom. Um, they even referenced in the article that they thought that it was looking like a crayfish with that had lost both its claws, which to a bass, to a walleye, to any fish down there, it's an easy meal. And in the article also it said that most of these pros, if they're fishing a craw type trailer bait, will automatically pull one claw off one side or the other, and it increases their how they're getting bit, um, as to what the fish, especially if you're fishing a bigger craw trailer, to the reel, and that those are big pinchers, and they're going to get whacked before they can eat this thing. Um, and the article says that it goes on to think that these fish just think it's an easy meal, and it's not able to defend itself, and so they gobble it up. You know, Jeff Gustafson is quoted in that article as saying in the last 5 years, the vast majority of the bass that he's caught, period, have all been on a Ned rig. So I thought that was fascinating, quite honestly. Thought it was fascinating and interesting, and I love hearing stuff like that. And I'm going to tell you right now, that article will make me go and fish the net a little bit more. And listen, Gustafson's from northern Minnesota, southern Ontario. He fished walleyes his whole life too, just like bass. And he said in the article, when you find those spots where the smallmouth and the walleyes are living on the same piece of structure, don't kid yourself and think those walleyes aren't eating crayfish, and that they won't go and get it just like a smallmouth will. And for somebody like I say, I don't keep a lot of fish, so I don't really I'm not too invested in only catching one species. Like today, we caught 6 species. The rod bends. I'm happy. Yeah, I'd like to get my target species necessarily, but if you said to me you can catch smallmouth and walleye in the same spot on the same baits, at the same time, sign me up. I love nothing more. So I will be fishing that Ned rig more. And like I say, Gustafson said in the article that he has a Ned rig or two tied on at all times. At all times when he's on the water, he's got a rod or two dedicated just to a Ned rig. And the school is widely varying on how you fish it, as far as what rod, action, stuff like that. But he was saying a regular 7 foot rod. Listen, a 7 foot, anything from a 6'6" to a 7 foot or 7'2", medium action, extra fast tip, you're going to be in the ballpark. You combine that with long fluorocarbon leaders, they said 10 plus feet, and light um, braid, and it transmits like a dream. You can feel everything. That's the point, right? That's the point with Superline, is to not only feel it from a long distance away, but be able to react to it and stick them from that same distance without having all that rubber band stretch in there. Um, but I'm going to fish the Ned rig more. And again, Gustafson was saying that it's a deadly walleye bait when they're on that same kind of structure, because he's not out looking for walleyes. So I'm going to fish it more this year and tell myself that it's one of those things I'd like to learn. Every time, as anglers, you put a different skill into your proverbial tackle box, another technique that you have confidence in, that you've caught fish on, that you think you can replicate that technique and that pattern somewhere else with the same, different body of water, same body of water, different fish, same fish. Um, you do yourself a large service as an angler because you want to be well-rounded. You want to have 17 tricks in your bag that aren't gimmick plays, that they'll work and given the right situation or a day or days like these last couple days. I started talking about the net rig because I got all the way down to pretty finesse, especially for me. I am more of a power fisherman. I tend to have a short attention span. That's why I like to jig, because it keeps me occupied and mentally and physically. Um, Also why I love a blade bait so much, because it is so communicative back and forth. Um, with it tells you how it's doing. And in my opinion, every time if you get that vibration, you feel that it can be bit at any second because it's working. Let's stop for a second and go back and see what's everybody's going on. Bum, 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 bum. Time with the old guy. What's going on? Mike Hoover, John Burroughs. John Burroughs is putting his boat in the water tomorrow morning. Right on, John. I'll see you out there. I know that chowder that Bill just mentioned made my mouth water. Uh, okay. You guys are saying the nest you frequent it often. Eric, is that the place that has the dead cover music all the time? Pike Master, good evening. Apulia Station, okay. Paul Taylor agreed, tight to the bottom and deep. I wasn't deep. I was right in the middle of the West End, which at the deepest is 20 feet. Most of it was 17 to 19. So I don't consider that deep. Um, and I don't think, Paul caught his first fish, his first walleye in 12 foot of water this morning, throwing a swim bait over those emerging weeds. So, they're not just in out deep. They're not just in close. They're mixed, and you got to find the active one. Um, ha, Rick Donchik is out using his wife's thing again. What's up with the east winds every weekend? Well, it's been east winds now for 5 or 6 days, and today got a little sporty too this morning. Not bad, but it was solid twos, and it was trying to build. It oscillated back to the northeast just a touch, so the island wasn't a break anymore because it had a little bit of south in it. First thing this morning, James Armstrong, sound effects. Fred Laurie. Yeah, Fred and Crystal. What's up, guys? Eric Wisniewski. So I'm assuming Eric's talking about the Ned rate, the Ned baits, Ned rig. I had success with it perch fishing. It is now in my cycle of baits. Yeah, I'm gonna, and it's funny. The mayfly hatch is coming, right? I've seen some lines, some scum lines of small hulls. They're not the big ones. I'm assuming there's some sort of mayfly already. A couple days ago, I saw them. My thought process was also for fishing and learning this Ned rig a little more is now with this coming bug hatch, they make terrestrial Ned baits that look like bugs. But listen, something black or brown or green. So black, brown pumpkin, green pumpkin, crawling along the bottom, I would think would make them think that what that looks like whatever bug that is that crawls up out of the mud when it's a nymph. And I would think that those are probably fairly good sized. So I thought that maybe that would be something that would catch fish during the bug hatch and try to put a bug imitation down there. There's no reason why it can't work. Bill Morey, my technique goal for the year, that's swim bait. But the Ned rig is on my near horizon. You know, Billy, don't overthink the swim bait. It is really quite simply, and Paul and I fished it all morning. And Paul was putting on a class this morning. He had me about 4-1 at one point. You can do any number of add-ons to your retrieve. But let's say that the standard year-round, tried and true is cast it out, it hits the water, and the first time you do it, depending on because every size head will sink at a different rate, and you're in 15 foot of water, whatever, is you cast it out the first time and you count it down until it hits the bottom and you see your line go slack. Now you know how long it takes to get to the bottom. Then I start back at the top, and let's say it took 12 to get all the way to the bottom. My next cast will be counted down to 3, and then I'll straight retrieve it back. And in my mind's eye, the whole time, I'm trying to make sure I keep that bait horizontal and moving, not constantly going up like this, not constantly going down. I'm trying to keep it as level as possible going through the water column. Now, with forward-facing sonar, you can really truly watch that. But without it or without it on, whenever I consciously catch myself watching myself reel, I automatically slow it down. Now when the water gets warmer, because it's not cold, but it's not warm either. It's in the mid to upper 50s on the surface, which means down 20 feet, down 30 feet, down 40 feet. It's less than that, you know? So middle of the summer, yeah, you can probably get away with swimming those baits a little faster. Most of the time I find straight and slow gets me bit the most. Again, you can do add-ons all you want. I'm a big fan. My wife does it too. You're reeling it along and all of a sudden you just stop reeling and that bait just falls. And it falls right to the bottom. That little tail's wiggling as it goes down. Then it sits there for a minute, however long you want it to. Now you can jig it back up. You can start to reel and just have it take off. You can hop it. You could do anything. There's no wrong answer. The right answer is when you get bit. And when you get bit, you remember that. This is what I was doing. This is what I just did. This is where I cast it. This is what I counted it down to. Because it's not an anomaly. Once is an anomaly, twice is a pattern. Okay? But the only way you can find out if it's a pattern is if you can bring it back and duplicate what you just did. No different than downrigger fishing or long, precision trolling. That number 3 rigger gets bit and it's down 65 and it's back 30 and you don't remember that and you put it back down and it's back 50, down 50. Now it's behind them and the way they're coming in and it's above them and it's not, you want it to go right back to where it was because it worked once. Now you want to see if it'll work again, because if it does, now you have a repeatable pattern. And it's the same thing with fishing a swim bait. And you just remember when and how you're bit, because it's not just a straight bottom orientation, because a jigging program is dealing with and working off of bottom. These last couple days when most of our fish, I haven't seen hardly anything. Like if I was trolling, I would have wanted all my baits in that bottom 5 feet of the water column, because I didn't see anything mid column or up on my electronics for days. If this weather turns around tomorrow and that high pressure system comes in or it stabilizes, you may see a bunch of those fish rise up, and then swim baits for them casted in the column or trolling for them with baits that are higher up. Boy, can be gangbusters, knock them dead. The swim bait is as easy as you make it, and you got to catch a couple fish to get your confidence up and to start putting together a pattern, but it only takes a couple bites. And that couple bites you can luck into by doing nothing more than just slow cranking. And when you think you're going too slow, go a little slower. Merlin, the Ned is a technique I haven't really spent much time with either, probably to my detriment. I know many are successful with it. And on two, Merlin's right. Part of it is you can't fish everything, and maybe you might not enjoy it. I'm going to tell myself I'm going to enjoy it and I'm going to learn it. And a Ned is very similar to a tube, and friends that know me know that sometimes that to me is like watching paint dry. I have a friend of mine, Nate, who was taught by his father-in-law Conrad, was one of the best at it. Dragging a tube is a patient man's game. If tube fishing would have been a thing when my grandpa's alive, he could have been a champ at it because that man had the patience of Job. He could have sat there and drugged that tube a half an inch at a time for all eternity. He'd have loved it. To me, it makes my brain itch and I want to go do something else. Sorry. I can do a little bit of it, and I've really got into that real finesse jigging here these last couple days, but I like to have a little motion in my ocean. I want moving parts whenever I can. It's just my personality. Ryan Bell's a lifelong amateur who never got good at fishing. I'm always grateful to more experienced fishing folk like Matt and the rest of y'all in the comments here who fill in the blanks and help me learn. Ryan, I'll be honest with you, that's my life's goal, is to teach, and fishing is my subject. And the people on here, the wealth of information we have in our community, of experience, of amazing sticks, and most certainly the people that are here tonight, and most everybody you meet that's a fisherman are pretty damn good people, and they're usually more than willing to learn, or to share what they know, especially when somebody is sincere, and they don't feel like they're out to get them, so to speak. Um, but when people come sincerely to learn and to understand, I personally, and you're welcome to go back and look through. I think we're over the 1,000 video upload mark on YouTube. Um, that's 200 a year on average. We're just over 5 years on YouTube, which is hard to believe sometimes. But here we are, and here all you are, and I couldn't be happier. Crystal wants to know if you know the Waldo jig. I do not. Jeff Johnson, where do you get your JT rods? I get them right from JT, Jeff, and you can too. And you can go to the comments, not the comments. You can go to the not comments description, and there's a link to JT. You can use my discount code, the Awakening Angler. No the in there, just the Awakening Angler. This is one of the rods. This is the 6.9 Black Rain series. This rod right here is what I've been using for the Shiver Minnows, and with a 2,000 to 2,500 series reel on it, it balances perfectly, and it's really just like this. I mean, it's just a flick of the wrist, and it just keeps that bait moving just like this. And most of the times I have felt those fish, even on a slack line. These rods are so incredibly sensitive, and that line transmits every single vibration, even when that bait is falling on a fully slack line. You can see it too with the high visibility because I'm staring right at my line, but you can feel it. You can feel it. It transmits right up that rod, and it's just a matter of, at that point, the first couple times I did it the other day, I felt it, and I said to myself, "Oh, that can't be a fish." And it, what I thought was bottom, and then I go to come back up to jig it again, and there's a fish. Then it did it again. I'm like, no kidding. I mean, I'm really feeling that transmission on a slack line because I'm watching it fall. And my friend Paul and I talked today. He just got one of his new JT rods. You don't need a JT rod to catch a fish, and no one's ever said that. Um, you don't need a Cadillac or a Denali package pickup truck either. Um, it's not like those are necessities that make that piece of equipment work. Um, but like anything, if you're of the mindset and the desire level to have that kind of equipment, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And dealing with something that is that sensitive and that fast and responsive is thrilling. By the time your brain registers that it's a fish and tells your hand to set it, um, it's exhilarating to feel that and not just come up the next time and there's weight there, which is what a lot of us have always done. And it still happens. I'm just saying that people ask, why do you need such a sensitive rod? Again, it's not a matter of need. It really comes down to want. And I have been fortunate enough to be in a position where I'm fishing these incredible, incredible sticks that transmit every single bit of of information that's going on down in the bottom. I like my Ned rig with a split tail and paddle tail instead of fork. Both are good. James Versick. James Armstrong. It's hard to try new things when we have our favorites at work. No question. No question. Old Faithful, my go-to every morning that I start out if I'm jigging, I'm starting with Homie the Clown. My old trusty blade bait. I know it. I know how it feels. I know if there's a fish around that I can keep it working. If they don't want to eat that, I'm in trouble. So no question. It's just a matter of more is better. You know, you don't have to have more, but knowing something else, knowing more, knowing another technique that you never know when it might come in handy. That's just one of those arrows in my quiver, I think. Don't be afraid to stop or pause a swim bait when retrieving. That's when they catch up to the swim bait. Yeah. And a lot of times on the back of the paddle, like let's say this is the back of the paddle tail, I'll put a black dot there to give that fish behind it something to aim at. So it's seeing it. It sees that dot. Ryan, I don't need to go back. I've seen a couple hundred of your videos. Right on, brother. Right on. All right. So Rick won the JTX, the 7-foot 1. He said my new JTX rod is awesome, casts a mile, light and sensitive. Yeah, I can't wait, Rick, to see what that does and how you like it. I have no idea of Rick's experience level or anything. I know he said he's been fishing since he was a kid, so I would assume it's high. I don't know if he's ever fished a rod like this, but I am looking forward to hearing what he thinks. As soon as I don't even know if he's been back up here yet. Rick is who won Walleye Fest last weekend. Oh, all right. Yeah, it's 40 minutes already. So part of all of these stories is my pledge to all of you is I will do more on the water teaching, um, specific this year. And at any time, if you have different techniques you want to try, um, I'll go put them to the test and see if whether, even if I don't know them. It's always fun to try new things. I am that way. Um, I love the puzzle of fishing. I always have. And trying something new. Like I can tell you, just reading that article tonight. I love In Fisherman. I've been a faithful subscriber, on and off all my life. I love the stuff they do in print and in video still, even though that's not all the same company, I don't think anymore. But um, I've always loved the Linders and how they portray fishing. It's not a mystical voodoo witchcraft. All the stars have to come into perfect alignment, once a year for you to get them and just beat the crap out of them. That's not the case. And they showed that it was a formula. What's up, Double D, Danny Diamond? Ed Man, do you use bottom bouncers? If so, what's a good trolling speed? Yeah, I'm using bottom bouncers for worm harnesses. Standard is 0.8 to 1.2, with 1.0 being about normal. I put plugs on the back of them with 5 to 10 foot leaders and dug them down in the dirt, in the mud, especially jointed Rapalas. I'll troll them a little faster than that, but you got to still have that bottom bouncer be making contact. A 4-ounce bouncer, 2 to 4 ounces, going 1 to 1.5 it's about right. Um, and I'll get into trolling some worm harnesses here a little later in the summer, especially on those hot flat mornings. I like to troll a worm harness, and boy, they get bit. Walleyes don't mess around. I don't usually troll a real worm on it. I usually put a Berkeley Gump, Forrest Gump worm on it, a Berkeley Gulp, or sometimes I'll throw on a power bait worm. Could be anything. I've put Zoom trick worms on there before and lathered them up with scent. So I don't really think, other than smell wise, those walleyes know that that's a live worm. I don't think so. Um, and then, anyways, it's probably not moving all that much. It's being towed through the water. It's probably laying there limp. So, but yes, I do that. Yes, I do. What else? Anybody got anything else? We're at almost 45 minutes. It's a long time. I love sitting in front of this. I love it. I love it. It feels cool. All those great sponsors. So Rick says, I was up Thursday night till Sunday. I've been using St. Croix rods for several years and thought they were the best. That is. People who know me say I was born with a rod and a bow in my hand. Right on. Ryan Bell says, I'd love to go fishing with any and all of you fine folks someday. Happy to meet you by the water. Hey, Ryan, you never know. There are a lot of wonderful people out there, and there's a lot of people that are always willing and open to having somebody join them. Fishing buddies can happen in a number of different ways, and you don't have to start out knowing each other to become fishing buddies. That's the beauty of it. So, all right, I think I'm good for tonight, everybody. Oh, one last thing, and I'll say it when I put this out. If anybody has pictures or video or anything from fishing during Walleye Fest, any of the fish you caught, anything like that, we're putting together a video scrapbook with pictures and video in it. So send it to Oneida Lake Walleye Fest Derby at gmail.com. That is the official email address. You can also find that on the website. The leaderboards are fixed and they are on the actual tab on the website that says leaderboards. You can go right to 2024 and it takes you there. Everybody's name is still up there, not just the winners. So everybody that entered a fish into the Derby, your name is still on the leaderboard for posterity. But yeah, I'd like to start putting together that video. So send all of your pictures and videos to me at Oneida Lake Walleye Fest Derby at gmail.com. That's our email address, and we'll get it put together. All right, everybody, have a great evening. I'll see you back on the lake tomorrow morning. My guess is I'll be right back on the west end, seeing if I can find the mother load out there. They got to be there somewhere. I think I've just picked at the fringes of it. So, all right, everybody, have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow. Keep your tip up.